Good morning. I'm Cathy Luer, CEO of My 4-Year Plan, and I'm really excited today to have Cathy Buckley sharing with this short interview on career snapshots. And Cathy has a really interesting job in the construction industry. So Cathy, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So Cathy, tell us a little bit about what you do and what industry you're in.
Okay. I work for a company by the name of McCamish Inc. We've been in business pushing a little over 40 years now. I've been with the company over 30 years.
Wow.
I estimate here, I'm the senior HVAC estimator at McCamish. Basically what I do personally is I take prints or drawings from engineers or architects, and I come up with what it's going to actually cost to furnish and install HVAC ductwork, the piping that goes with it, as well as our company also does plumbing. So we have 3 trades. The mechanical trades typically are fitters, plumbers, sheet metal workers, and electricians. Here at McCamish, we do 3. We do we have fitters, sheet metal workers, and plumbers all under one roof.
So this is just this is a commercial construction company, right?
We do all commercial and industrial work. For instance, McCamish did PPG Paints Arena. I was there for the groundbreaking. I helped with the design of the building. With the design, not the building itself, but the HVAC portion of it. We did Children's Hospital. We do a lot of work at Presby, a lot of work for UPMC and Allegheny Health Network, but we really don't do residential. Occasionally we'll do dorms or something like that, or apartment buildings, but that's really not our forte. Our forte is big projects that have some meat to them.
It's an amazing size that you're talking about. So let me ask you this: if a person was just coming out of college per se, and they wanted to do what you do, what kind of a degree might they have?
You would probably want a construction or project management degree. Mechanical engineering degrees help. I'm basically reading what the mechanical engineer has put on paper, but having that degree allows you to do a little bit. The industry as a whole is starting to go through some changes, and we're seeing a lot of this keyword design build. And what design build is the owner comes to a developer and says, okay, here's my project, here's the parameters I want you to hit. Now, you go design me an HVAC or a plumbing system and do it for the best, give me the best value for that, okay? So as a mechanical engineer, you would be able to say, okay, and having estimating to go along with that, you'd be able to say, okay, I know exactly what to put on paper that's going to give my end customer the results he's looking for and give it to him in the most economical way possible.
Sure. So it sounds like ideally the person in your position might be a mechanical engineer because they would need to know about the background of what they're going to be getting from the architects, but it also sounds like the construction management angle would be beneficial because you know how it's going to be constructed.
The management angle helps. I mean, there's an old saying, sometimes in estimating you can know too much. Because if you know too much, then you tend to build too much into your pricing so you don't necessarily get the job. However, understanding how a project is built, the constructability of a project, certainly is very helpful. That way you don't leave anything out as far as an estimator.
And it also sounds like having some business perspective too might be helpful.
Yes, you need to know, I've seen a lot of trends in our industry since I've been in it for so long. And one of the trends that bothers me more than anything is the inability of these young people coming into the industry and not being able to develop relationships with people.
Interesting.
The construction industry is, as much as it's hardcore nuts and bolts industry, I've seen it go through a lot of changes back in the day where we communicated with people. We picked up phones and we called them, and we know, and most of my vendors I know who they're married to, the names of their spouses, their children, what their children are interested in. You know, if somebody's sick in the family, I know all those things. And nowadays, you see so many people just relying on text messages or emails. You don't get that personal relationship. I can tell you from experience that I've landed a lot more work because I've developed personal relationships with the people I deal with. It makes a
Interesting.
difference.
Is that something that is caught or taught?
I think it's a function of society in general.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think, you know, where we've been going lately, nobody picks up a phone. They all want to do it now. I want to be able to do it now. I want to be able to shoot off a text message, shoot off an email instead of picking up the phone and taking an extra 5 minutes to say, hey, how are you doing? But in that respect, having some business behind you, you at least have a common ground to talk to that other person about.
Sure.
When we're dealing with developers, you know, most of the developers have a lot of business background. We deal with quite a few developers. By having some business background or a business degree, that would be most beneficial just to start that conversation going.
Sure. So let me ask you, like, are you the only estimator in your large company? Are there others?
No, we have 6 estimators in the commercial department. We have a couple estimators in an industrial department, and we have, I think, 2 estimators in our service department. We have multiple branches here. We do everything from the HVAC and plumbing end to we do service contracts on big buildings downtown. We also, believe it or not, we do a lot of work with the amusement industry. We've designed and built many of the large water slides and zip lines that you see going across the country.
Wow, that's an exciting way to sort of change up the day a little bit.
It is. I don't necessarily work on that portion. We've got a different department for that, but those guys have a lot of fun. I mean, you know, when they go out for the installation, they go out and they talk to the engineers and they come up with the pricing. We take everything. We take raw pipe and raw metal, and we basically fabricate all of the stands and whatnot that you see these large slides going onto.
Well, that's exciting.
Mhm.
Now, are you instrumental in training students who are coming in as recent grads?
I do a lot of work with our interns. We bring usually 3 or 4 interns in every summer.
Okay.
Um, they spend usually, at least 2 of them spend half of their summer with me. Because of my experience, and I don't ask me why, I tend to get along with young people pretty well, but they tend to like it because I enjoy talking to them and explaining to them why. I'm not going to tell them this is what you do. I want you to understand why.
Sure. And so back to this question of type of degree, in the past few summers, has it been mostly engineering or construction management interns
Yes,
that you've been
without
hiring?
question. Um, we have had no business people come through in the last 2 years. I think we may have had one 3 years ago, but usually I get the mechanical engineers.
Okay. And do you specifically go looking for the Mechie majors, or do you?
As a company, we do. I mean, we go to Penn State, Maine for their fair, their intern fairs or whatever they're called. We go to Robert Morris. I think there's one other school, and we recruit. Everybody loves it here. We've hired quite a few of our interns, amazingly so. It's crazy, but we give good training in the summer times, and the people that intern here seem to like it here.
It's fantastic. So you've been there 30 years, which is remarkable and on any level of any industry. But this gives us an opportunity to hear from you. Like, how has your industry changed?
Um, the last few weeks notwithstanding, because things have been kind of crazy the last few weeks. But we've seen a lot of growth in the Pittsburgh area in the healthcare. Um, you know, UPMC is putting a huge new eye clinic down at Mercy Hospital, which is a very exciting project. We personally were not successful on it, but it's only one of two in the entire world that will be like it. They're the only other one is in France. Um,
You're not going to be doing it because
no, 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 no. Actually, the company that my husband worked for is doing that project. But if you go down by Mercy Hospital, you can see the large tower cranes. They've begun construction on it. Soon Presby is going to, or UPMC is going to be putting a new building up. And as crazy as this sounds, you know, and we watch TV and we see these medical shows where they're touching windows and screens, like, and things pop up. That's actually going to be here in Pittsburgh. You're going to see Presby Hospital put up this bed tower, and it is going to have those things in the windows. Your TV is going to be in the windows. The doctor's going to come in and pull all your stats up in the windows. And it's in the HVAC plumbing for that kind of a facility is amazing. And that's still on the drawing board. I mean, we're still we've been doing some budgeting work for it, but it's crazy to see where technology is taking things.
it's so exciting. So if I'm understanding you correctly, and I've seen this on college campuses where a lot of classrooms have windows instead of walls, and students can write right on the windows. So are we talking about the external facing windows are going to have the
Yeah.
TVs embedded into them?
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor's charts also are going to be able
Everything.
to be accessed
It's crazy.
yeah, so how does the person driving past this building not also see a person's charts?
It's the way the glass is made. And it's just crazy. It's crazy to see the changes in the technology that's coming out. You know, the other thing I've seen a lot of in our industry, and right, wrong, or indifferent, is green buildings. You know, environmentally sound, no carbon footprint buildings. You know, things that I never saw when I first started was something like duct cleaning, where we've put brand new duct in a building, and we've got to have a third party come in and clean it all because they want to make sure there's no contaminants in it whatsoever. Putting doors in ductwork to access so that it can be cleaned for the future. Different types of energy sources using geothermal systems, things that I never would have seen 30 years ago or even 20 years ago, is becoming very commonplace now. So there's also a big push for people in the environmental industry that understand where things can be changed in mechanical, electrical, plumbing, interiors, all those, to make a difference so that we reduce our carbon footprint.
Now, how much of your day, Cathy, is in the office versus actually going out perhaps to a site or to a meeting or anything like that?
I used to go out quite often. When we would get a job into bid, most jobs, especially ones that are retrofitting old buildings, there's always a walkthrough. You always need to go out to the site and see what you're getting into. You can't just rely on the prints you have, you know, on your computer screen. Nowadays, I'm here more just because I've got so many other responsibilities. The times I get out of the office are more for meetings. You know, we just landed a $24 million project down in West Virginia at Ruby Hospital. It's a new children's hospital. I went to all the pre-construction meetings for that. So I don't get out to sites so much anymore because I'm so busy in here. But that's of my own choosing. I mean, I could go out and go. I mean, I can take an afternoon and go to a job site. Nobody's going to. That's up to me to do. But I've got quite a few responsibilities in here right now.
How long would it take a recent grad to get up to speed? Really, I mean, it's amazing that a person could come in with a Mechie degree and know that they could potentially be reasonably successful, but also because they're having to learn the unique portions of your business. How long would it take them to get up to speed on everything?
Usually when we bring in kids out of college, you're going to see them put with somebody who's got some experience. So if we're hiring one of our interns to become a project manager per se, they're going to be with that project manager for probably a good 2 to 3 years to learn the ropes.
I would imagine so, because there's so many facets that just don't get covered in college. In fact, I was just having this conversation last night with two of my own kids, one who's a recent grad and one who's a senior in college. And we were talking about, you know, how how true to form are the classes that you're actually taking in college, and what percentage of those actually translate or mean anything once you graduate. And that's the same kind of thing here. It's like they've done the Mechie classes, but how much of that is actually true to form once they hit your front steps?
We don't expect them to come in and know what to do. We really take our time um, to make a well-rounded individual that's really going to be of use to not just McCamish, but the industry in general, because we're seeing less and less people getting into the construction industry. And to be perfectly honest with you, this is an industry that's not going to go away. Okay, you're not going to be able to have robots building 50-story buildings. It just is not going to work. We spend the time with them, and it does take time, and it again, it takes building relationships with people, not just people outside of the company to get a job, but you've got to learn to build relationships with the people you're working with.
Now it's becoming more common for college grads to come out of their university and maybe work for 2 years at an entry level job, and then take off to another job. And obviously, for a company like you, you've invested so much in them and their training. And then, do you ever have that as an issue?
We do sometimes. McCamish, the company I work for, McCamish is a great company. I mean, they really, I've been in the business. I've been here for over 30 years. I've been in the business. I was in the business about 3 years before that. Back in the late 80s, a woman in the construction industry was a very tough row to hoe. I mean, I really had quite a few battles on my hands. I've watched the industry change drastically to the point where a lot of contractors are specifically looking for women in the field. We tend to be more patient. We tend to be more detail oriented. Those are things that are very important in construction. And it's interesting to see these. We've hired a couple of our female interns here. It's interesting to see these young ladies come in and to spend time and watch them grow. It really is great.
It's really exciting. When you say it was a tough road to hoe back in the 80s, what were some of those bumps?
Uh, there were people that just, I would put an estimate together and they're like, oh, she did it. Okay. Just because I was female, I basically was just brushed aside. Luckily, the gentleman that owns this company, David McCamish, he had no reservations in hiring a woman, none at all. And he's treated me incredibly well over the years.
So now what percentage of students coming out, or anyone that you hire, what's the male to female ratio now, would you say?
I would say probably 25% female.
Okay.
Of our interns in the summertime, at least 25%, at least, one of the four or two of the four are going to be female.
What are some attributes that you think would make a person successful in the construction industry? You've already spoken to a couple of them. Just the ability to have being detail oriented, being able to be articulate, being able to have good people skills. What are some other things that you think?
You really need to have some mechanical common sense. I was raised in such a way where my father was always putting a building up of some sort, whether it was a house for a friend, a garage over this one summer. I mean, and you have to have some, I learned from him, pardon me, how to build things. So there is a certain amount of common sense that you need to have in regards to putting things together. You have to sometimes be able to see it in your mind's eye so that when you're looking at it in 2 dimensions on a computer screen, that you can actually kind of visualize what it looks like.
Sure.
That helps tremendously.
And you probably also have access to some pretty robust 3D software, I'm imagining as well.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
So Cathy, what does a day in the life of look like? Maybe in your role specifically, and then maybe in some of the other roles that you bump up against.
I can tell you that when I first started in this business, I was single and I didn't have any children. So I would literally come in here at 5 o'clock in the morning and leave at 5 o'clock at night. I worked very hard. Didn't regret a moment of it. Didn't think I was missing out on anything. And I was rewarded very well for doing that. There's something to be said for hard work when you're getting into the business. that people will notice that. People will recognize that. And that if you're working for the right company, you will be rewarded for that. And I can say that at McCamish, I was definitely rewarded for that. I had a child 15 years, or almost 16 years ago. That kind of changed things a little bit. But I'm at a place now where I come in the morning at 7 o'clock. I usually get here at 6 now, but my day technically starts at 7. I go through my emails, make sure I answer any emails, get rid of any trash, take care of any just logistical things that I've got sitting in my computer that I just knew I need to take care of. And then sometimes I'll start working on jobs that I have here that are just due. I just finished estimating a $22.5 million job for over in Shadyside. I go through front end specifications, trying to figure out, what insurances are required, what's the job schedule. As the job schedule they've put out, something that I really can build to. Seeing the people I've got to go out. I mean, we manufacture ductwork, we install ductwork and piping, but there's still a lot of other pieces to put a complete bid together. We have large air handling units, which are basically furnaces on steroids, if you don't know what an air handler is. We've got an air handler up at Children's Hospital that literally, if you go up there, you can see it on the side of the building. It's like 100-foot long. And all it does is produce cold air and warm air. Okay, I mean, we're talking big, and it's almost $2 million worth of equipment. So I have to go ahead.
How long does it take to put together an estimate on a major project?
It can take a couple weeks. It can take upwards to a month. I mean, I did a job years ago down in Maryland. It was called USAMRIID, but it was all BSL 3 and 4 laboratories. I literally had 80,000 lines of entry to take this job off, and it took me almost 2 weeks after I entered everything into the computer to tabulate how much ductwork I had. It still took me another 2 weeks to pull it all together.
Now, when you say, let me drill down on a couple things. You just rattled off BSL 3 and 4. What is that?
Different levels of clean rooms.
Okay.
For biosafety reasons. We do a lot of work in laboratories where, we can have no contaminants escape a space. So we've got heavy filtration, we've got stainless steel welded ducts so that nothing corrodes the duct and possibly any contaminants escape to the airstream or into the space that the people are working. We get involved in some pretty high-tech stuff.
Well, I bet you do. And I mean, when you talk about not being able to let any contaminants escape, I mean, that's, all over the news right now with the coronavirus and how contaminants could have potentially escaped the Virology Institute in Wuhan. It makes sense even, in our own space here in the US, why when you're working in medical and high-tech environments, well, you can't afford to have even one molecule of something.
No, and we do a lot of that work. As a matter of fact, we've gotten numerous calls over the last couple weeks from different hospital organizations here in town trying to convert spaces, and not just older hospital spaces, but even some of the hotels downtown, to try and convert them to negative air pressure to keep contaminants out of spaces in case we run out of hotel rooms.
Now, you had also said something about, I think you said 80,000 lines of entry. Can you explain what that means?
A single piece of duct is a line of entry. So if I'm taking off duct work, I've got a piece of duct, that's a line of entry. Then I change direction, that change in direction, that elbow that we put in, that's another line of entry. So I had to put in more than 80,000 separate lines to take this job off. It was an enormous project down in Maryland, enormous.
Can't imagine. So you've really given a viewer a potential idea and scope of what this industry entails. What would you say are the highs and the lows?
The highs are definitely no two jobs are ever the same.
Okay.
I've been doing this for 33 years. I've never come across two jobs that are exactly the same. Now, the older I get, I've bid jobs and we've built them, and then I've come across a point where now I'm 15, 20, 30 years later, demolishing the stuff that I put, I estimated to put in way back when, and now we're putting new stuff in. So that turnover is beginning for me. But no two jobs are ever the same. There's always something different. And I estimate probably 200 jobs a year.
Wow.
Some are very small, some are enormous. It just depends. The low points are, and this is something I've learned over the years to get over. The eye clinic, for example, at Mercy Hospital, that was a $50 million mechanical project, if I recall. We didn't get it. It took me a very long time to pull that job together. It was about 2 months of my life, okay, and working some long hours and doing what I needed to do. But it was a very interesting project. And when they get interesting, you don't notice the time so much. But we didn't get it. And that sucks.
And,
In,
yeah,
in
and
the,
companies like yours probably don't get paid for doing the estimate,
oh,
right?
no. It's my salary. That's it. I mean, you estimate just on the hope that you're going to get a job. There's no compensation for it. But I've learned over the years that they come and they go. And we actually, as a company, have a much better hit ratio on jobs we bid to jobs we get than the nation overall.
Because how many companies are usually bidding on one particular job?
In Pittsburgh, there's probably 4 or 5 of us that are bidding the big work, big work.
So if a new student is considering this kind of a career in either going down the mechie path, the mechanical engineering path, or the construction management path, I mean, this really sounds like the perfect blend of best of both worlds.
Estimating can be a lot of fun. It
Sure,
really can. I mean, you have to have the right personality type though to handle disappointment. I
sure.
mean, you can't let every loss, drag you down. You have to be able to say, okay, I got to move on to the next one.
Now, would an incoming person in this kind of a role anticipate? Is there a commission based on when you get jobs, or is somebody in your job usually just straight salary?
I'm salary and I get a bonus. This particular company, and I don't know what other companies in Pittsburgh do it because I've just been here so long. We get a nice bonus in February.
Okay, so
And
if a student was coming in new to this world, what do you think might be a starting salary for a recent grad?
I'm probably thinking in the 45 to 50.
Okay,
I would think that I don't know that it would be quite that much in estimating. In project management, I think they could expect to make around that kind of a salary.
and so even with the mechanical engineering degree as well.
Probably until they prove themselves.
Okay,
I made very little money when I started here,
okay.
but based on my performance and my willingness to work hard, my raises were significant for a number of years.
I bet. And so, I mean, so that's the back end that a person, if they had that kind of vision, could say, well, if I stick it out, there's the potential bonuses that I could get in this industry that I might not be able to get in a similar or parallel industry.
I've gotten bonuses that have been very, very nice,
It's
but
it's
I worked very hard for it.
it's wonderful for you. It sounds like you have a job you love, that you've had over 30 years experience doing this. You've proven yourself. You've probably paved the way for many other people who were women in this industry, and that's exciting. You've really definitely given a viewer today a chance to see sort of the whole scope of what this entails, and the ways that you also intersect your work with the architects and the engineers and the designers and the developers and the owners. And so from that standpoint, I think it's been a really helpful perspective to give to someone. So anything else that you'd like to add?
Um, no, I recommend the industry. I mean, it's especially for young women and young men too. But the thing that I want to emphasize is most young people, please learn to communicate. Please learn to pick up a phone and talk to people. Please learn something about their lives. It will get you so much further in this world. It just truly will.
That's awesome. So Cathy Buckley, thank you so much for giving us this inside perspective on career snapshots of the estimating industry here today.
My pleasure.